you guys about just general readiness. This will help you prepare for wildfires, but it'll help you prepare for earthquakes or power outages or any hazard that comes our way. There's 4 big things we need to do. Now, full disclosure, I evacuated for the Eden fire. I live in Sierra Madre. So I'm gonna walk you guys through this, but I'm also gonna walk you through it from me practicing my plan and my kit and all of those things so that you can kind of get a practical idea of what this looks like. Big things you need to do. Get the alerts, make a plan, have your supplies ready, and one that costs nothing but is really helpful is being ready. Like staying in a state of readiness. That does not mean you have to have anxiety of what's gonna happen next. It's just little things that we can do that make us so much more prepared. Next slide, please. All right, so alerts. We got 4 big forces of information for you. The first one we've talked about pretty in-depthly, but please sign up for Alert South Bay if you haven't yet. That is gonna be the quickest way we get information to you. We will get it there. That's the first thing we're doing. That is our first goal, is to get you guys to safety. With that said, if you see a fire next to your house, don't wait for my alert, go. And this is something that happened to me. I was driving home from RPV from work, and I was going home to Sierra Madre, and I knew the weather was crazy because I was listening to all of those national weather reports and briefings, and I saw a little fire start on the hill. And I was like, oh no, this is bad. Because that little fire, by the time I parked, went from this to this. That was in the matter of 2 minutes of me exiting and parking. It had grown, and I ran into my house and I started getting ready. I did not get the alert until I was already in my car leaving. I was getting my evacuation warning. But I saw the fire, I saw how fast it was moving, and I moved. Now, you may be sleeping when something happens. So if you're sleeping, this is gonna wake you up, and you can sign up for Everywhere You Care About, and definitely sign up for phone calls. We're not gonna bother you for a road closure. We're not gonna bother you for a house fire, but if something could kill you, we're gonna bother you, and you wanna wake up for it. Know your zone, that's the Genesis. When we talk about Genesis, the Genesis map is housed there. And then we also have all 4 Peninsula cities information and resources on getting ready for any emergency. So definitely check that out. And then we of course have the city's website and our app. On that website, these presentations are going to be posted there. All of the resources we have, the question and answers, everything that we have here, we will post there also for quick access. And finally, we now have an emergency radio station. So if you tune in to 1680 AM, and you can do that from your car radio. If you have a little radio, which we'll talk about in a second too, you can do that there. And right now it's just on a little loop, but if there's an emergency, everything we push in those alerts, we're pushing on there too. And the great thing about a radio is if the power's out and communication's down, we can still communicate with you. Doesn't matter, we don't need a cell phone, we don't need power. It runs completely with no power and with no cell or any data signal that we need. Next slide, please. So when there's an emergency, text is best. Landlines, and if you can find a payphone, work better than cell phones. Internet works better than text, and long distance calls work better than close calls. So when there's a major emergency, having someone who's 100 miles or more away that everyone knows to call and who you all remember their numbers is really good because you can get congested real quick. I'm an emergency manager. A few years ago, we had a little earthquake in LA. My phone jammed because everyone I know wanted to call me to ask what they're supposed to do with this 4.0 earthquake, but it got completely jammed. So I text my family. I was like, is there an emergency? They're like, there was an earthquake. I was like, are you okay? They're like, yes. I was like, then it's okay. But the thing is that will happen, and you'll be trying to call your loved ones because that's the first thing you think of. The ground shake, there's a fire, there's smoke. I need to make sure my family's okay. So just remember, text, data tend to work better than phone calls, and if you need to make a phone call, have a out-of-area contact that everyone can call because you may not be able to get in contact with each other. The phone lines are going to be jammed with everyone calling at once. and have all of those communication numbers that you need written down. Have it on your phone, but what happens if your phone breaks while you're evacuating? What happens if you forget it? Have it written down, have a communication card in your car, in your go bag, in all the places you care about. The number for your out-of-area contact, the number for any really important people that you need to get a hold of, your children's school, your family's phone numbers, your doctor's phone number, anything that's really important to you, having one consolidated list is really, really useful. Next slide. Okay, so going back to my story. I get home, I'm like, oh no, my apartment's gonna burn down. What do I need to do? First, I was like, oh, the phones are still working. I called my partner, I said, hey, where are you? He was somewhere else. I was like, hey, there's a fire here. You're probably not gonna be able to come home by the time you get here. So meet me at this person's house, one of our family friends' house. How will you find your loved ones if separated? I told him where I was going, but I also have plans. If you can't find me and you can't get a hold of me, the park down the block. If our area is evacuated, the park in the San Fernando Valley. If that doesn't work and we have to leave this whole area, I have a spot in Bakersfield that we're gonna meet. And so knowing places we can meet, especially if communication goes out. How will you address household members' needs while evacuated? So my partner has a little daughter. So when I was in the house, we have go bags and she has her supplies and her toys and her stuff, her books to keep her entertained. What do you need? Do you have medications you need? I took my extra glasses. I took my contacts. What else will I need? What medicines do I take? What equipment will I need? And also, what do we need for our sanity? Some people cannot stand a lot of noise and a lot of things. Maybe some headphones. Noise canceling headphones can help you. How will you get information and assistance during a disaster? The information I shared with you is where you're gonna find most of the resources that you need, but also think about your own individual resources. If you get dialysis, where else can you go if your area is no longer available to do that? Having those conversations before an emergency, because if you do it during an emergency, what's gonna end up happening is everyone's asking the same questions and it's gonna take longer to get to you. And if it's something really important, you wanna address it immediately. Where will you go and how will you get there if you must evacuate? So our evacuation plan, I was gonna go stay with my uncle, my partner was gonna go stay with his mother. We decided, because we wanted to see if they could stop the fire, we were gonna stay in a hotel for a night and then see what was gonna happen the next day. I have renter's insurance. My hotel stay was covered by my renter's insurance. If my apartment had burned down, which it didn't, thankfully, that would have covered my supplies in there too, and it would have covered my personal policy, I believe, has up to a month of a stay somewhere. So that was where my planning was there. If you cannot evacuate, where can you seek refuge? So for me, I had plenty of evacuation routes, so I wasn't too worried about that, but we're not in that situation here on the peninsula. There are limited egress routes, and you want to follow the guidance and leave when you can, but what happens if you can't? You need to find somewhere that doesn't have a bunch of foliage and vegetation that can burn, like an empty parking lot. This parking lot out here would work to try to keep you safe. A pool if you have one. Where can you go? And then your animals, where can they go? If you have large animals, where can you put them that is safe where they won't run into the fire? What about your animals, your pets, your smaller animals? How can you address these needs for them? And then what's your plan B? Plan A, if you're lucky, your plan A will work. 90% of the chance, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be plan B that works. So I'm gonna evacuate here. And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna evacuate to this place. And if you're a go-getter, go down to Z, A to Z. But if you're not, A, B, C. Have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And you can stop there if you're like, I'm done with this. But at least having those, and how will I get there? What happens if I can't go here? What happens if my car is old and it doesn't work when I try to leave? What can I do at that point? Who can I call to pick me up? Next slide, please. All right, so when I got home, I have my emergency bag. I have 3 emergency bags, and I realized that I need an earthquake bag and a wildfire bag, because one is to stay at home and one is to leave. And so I had a lot of time because I had seen the fire and I was like, they're gonna send an evacuation warning, the power's gonna go out soon. Okay, let me look through my stuff. So I walked around my house and I was like, okay, well I put my snacks from right next to my fridge, like our granola bars and stuff. I put them away. I put some water bottles, grabbed my extra glasses. I don't take medicine, so I didn't need to do that. I put a few chargers, a car charger, a portable charger, and my regular charger in that bag. I already had clothes in there. I had a couple changes of comfortable clothes, one long sleeves, one short sleeves. I grabbed my feminine products, I grabbed some makeup wipes, I grabbed some disinfectant wipes, put those in there. I already had a flashlight with batteries and a charger. I personally store all of my copies of important information on a cloud drive, but if you don't want to do that, you're like, I like paper, that's okay. That out-of-area contact should have a copy of all of those documents for you, because then you're not digging through stuff to try to find what you need. So I have that, and then I had a copy of my birth certificate in there along with my passport, just in case, and some cash. If power is out, ATMs don't work. Bank doesn't work. If you need money, you need money. So I personally try to keep $100 in me at all times. My go bag has a couple $100s in it just to get me to a place that actually has an ATM that works. And I recommend everyone does the same. Now, as I was walking around, I was like, what's important to me? The ring my mom got me, the necklace from my grandma. And then I started looking at the picture frames. I had too much time on my hands. So I started looking at the picture frames. I was like, can I fit this in my car? I was like, I don't need to fit this in my car. So I started taking pictures of them. I was like, I really like this picture. And I would be sad if it burned. I started walking through my house. What would make me sad if I really lost it? Because this can all burn down. What will hurt me the most? And so like my favorite dress from my homeland, I put that in my suitcase. And I had a little extra time. You don't always have that, but if you do it beforehand, it saves you a lot of heartache if you lose your stuff. A little first aid kit is always great to have. Thankfully, the child wasn't in the house with me. I guarantee you she would have cut herself while she was packing. Somehow, she would have injured herself. So having something there is always helpful. And I do have my emergency plan in there also. Where am I gonna go? How am I gonna get a hold of people if my phone goes off? Thankfully, that didn't happen to me. Like I mentioned, entertainment. I know that sounds really like, okay, entertainment stuff for an evacuation. I did research in Southeast Louisiana on Hurricane Katrina. The children who evacuated and their parents were terrified and gave them nothing to do talked about the trauma 10 years after when I interviewed them. Like it was horrible, it was hell. The kids whose parents were a little more relaxed and who had fun things to do talked about it like a vacation. The difference, the contrast. We were in traffic for 6 hours and I didn't know where we were gonna go and I didn't know if our home was okay and my mom was crying, versus, oh yeah, me and my sister were playing cards in the back seat. It was long, but we had fun and we were telling jokes and I was reading my book. It makes the whole difference. And it's not just for children. If you have to evacuate, it's really traumatic. And so having things to entertain you, to try to make you feel a little bit more normal when everything is chaotic, it can save your mental health. And then if the power is out, how are you getting your information? If you have a radio that works great in your car, that's great. You should still have one in your go bag so that you can find that emergency information if all of the communication systems are not working, which can happen in a wildfire. It happened in Malibu. The radios were really, really helpful in getting information to the people. Next slide. Oh, and please, update your kits every 6 months. You gotta update them. If the things in there are expired and not working, they're not useful. Okay, so a few more things you should have. In your car, a map. I know, not a lot of us have maps anymore because we have navigation systems, but what happens if your phone doesn't work? A compass, for the same reason. You don't have a navigation if your phone's not working. How are you getting around? Spare keys for your house. Because when you run out and there's a fire, you may forget your keys. And so having those are really important. Spare tire and jack, that's not just for major emergencies. Having these things will help you in the long run. And same thing with the jumper cable and the rope. This is just things that if there's a small emergency or a major one, they're gonna help you in your car. I have all this in my car. I've used all of this in my car. Not for this evacuation, just for random days where things go wrong. Under your bed, having protective wear, having some glasses, having a helmet, having some sturdy shoes. I know we're talking about wildfires, but if there's an earthquake or you're waking up from Alert South Bay to tell you to evacuate immediately, the last thing you want to do is be running out barefoot. You're gonna injure yourself. So definitely have that, a light stick or flashlight next to your bed for the same reason. You get an evacuation order, you try to turn on the lights to get ready and go, and the lights are already out, because many times SCE will shut off the power when there's fire weather to help prevent more fire spread. And then a whistle, help sign, tape. These are things to try to tell people if you're trapped, if you need help, to try to get that signal. It helps with wildfires, also with earthquakes. If you get, hopefully never happens, but if you're under the rubble, that whistle will tell people you're alive. And then again, for children, entertainment, don't forget about your pets. Please don't forget about your pets. The food, the toys, the same thing goes for them. If they are panicked out and they don't have their favorite toy and they're forced in a crate, it's gonna be bad. They're gonna freak out. They may act in a way that can get them injured. Next slide, please. Okay, so state of readiness. So on this side, remaining in a state of readiness. I packed all my stuff. I went to my car's gas was full, my phone was fully charged, and I started plugging in my laptops. I have my work laptop and my personal. I was like, let me charge these before the power goes out. They got charged right before the power went out because they were already almost charged. But if the power's out, you're not charging your phone unless you have a portable or car charger. And what happens if that breaks? Because when you need it the most, that's when it breaks. So making sure it's charged, making sure your gas is full. Trying to get gas when you're on empty and there's a fire coming down the hill is not when you want to do it. If there's a fire and you're worried you're going to evacuate, park your car facing out. That's what I did. I was pacing because I was like, I'm ready to go, but it's not close enough and I haven't got an order and I'm just going to wait a minute. And so I parked my car out. And I made sure everything was ready. I can go as fast as I need to. The weather was crazy, and there was a fire in Altadena next to us that ends up merging. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go the opposite direction, and let me get out as quick as I can and make sure all of that's done. And keeping an eye out. If there's fire weather, we've talked about this a little, but do things to try to prevent fires. Throwing a cigarette butt out on a fire weather day when there's a red flag warning is gonna destroy your community. Grilling on a day when there's a fire weather alert, a red flag warning or something like that, it can create a fire. And then if you see something, it's a windy day and you see some smoke, report it immediately. Even if you're just calling 911, hey, we see fire on this block. Because that little fire, we can contain it. And that's why we have Pano AI cameras also, to try to find them, identify them quickly. But being alert, being vigilant, it saves your life when it comes to fires. It saves your life when it comes to earthquakes, with active shooters, with any emergency you can think of. Just being aware of your surroundings can save your life. And then the big thing here is practice. Can you raise your hand if you've ever done an evacuation drill? Okay, eventually this whole room needs to be raising their hands, because the thing is I can plan all I want, I can pack all I want, but when the day comes and it happens, if I am not practiced, I'm gonna panic because it's scary. And you don't want that to happen. And we do something to practice and practice, we're familiar with it. And it no longer becomes a trauma, it becomes a habit. And so I practice an evacuation drill every 6 months. So as you could tell, I was ready to go way before it happened because I knew where everything was. I practiced, I was comfortable with it. Now this goes even more for your pets and for young children and with anyone with any mental health needs, because they're gonna panic even more. Unless you make it fun for them the first time. If you have a kid or a dog or a horse or whatever it might be, getting them in the evacuation drill, they'll be like, oh, I'm used to this now. I'm used to getting in my carrier and getting a treat. Maybe we're going to the park. And they're gonna do it and they're gonna treat it like it's nothing. And the same thing goes with kids. Oh, we do this every 6 months. This isn't scary, this is normal. And so it becomes routine and your brain will go into autopilot and protect you even when you're in that state of chaos. And don't just do it once, don't just do it in the day, at night, because everything happens at night for some reason. Holidays and nights are when the disasters want to happen. So in the day, in the night, at different locations. I'm going to practice evacuating from my work, but I'm also going to practice from my house and from my mom's house and from wherever else I frequent. and as many routes as you can use. Don't always use the same. What happens if I try my car and it's dead and everyone's evacuated? Who can I call? How can I get where I need to go? So I promised you guys a short presentation. As a reminder, these presentations will be posted on YouTube. Our rpvca.gov/emergency will have the link to the presentations and all the resources.